everyone, my name's Christy. Welcome to my corner. Thank you so much for joining me today on this Saturday afternoon to talk about my craft fair this morning. And I will show you both what I took to the craft fair, a couple pictures while I was there too, in fact, because I only took 2 pictures, and also how it went and lessons I've learned. But before I get to any of that, I want to welcome my new subscribers. Thank you all so much for joining me on my crafty and artistic adventures, and welcome back to everyone who's been with me for however long you've been with me. It's been great to get to know you in the comments here on YouTube and also on Instagram. And if you're not following me on Instagram, you can find me in 2 places these days. You can find me at Dr_Christy, which I'll put both of them right here. And that is where I post my stitching, my normal kind of everyday, my dog, that kind of a thing. I also have a second account, which is called The Spoolery, which is a new, business venture that I'm kind of getting into. I got a little obsessed with vintage spools and started making things out of them. But I figured not everyone in my normal feed would care about vintage spools. So I created a new account for that. So if you're interested in vintage spools, the Spoolery account is all spools all the time. The Dr. Christy account is more holistic and way more stitching with minimal spooling. So if you want to see what I'm doing during the week, you can check me out at either or both of those places. This is a channel about embroidery and cross stitch and other textile crafts and baking and history and the history of all of those things. So if you're interested in that and you're not subscribed, I'd love to have you subscribe and stick around. So this morning was my first craft fair as the Spoolery, which is this new business that I have decided to start because I kept buying vintage spools and my husband was like, Christy, why don't you make something out of these and go to the holiday market at the farmer's market this year? And I thought, that's a great idea. And so my hobby changed from buying vintage spools to making things out of vintage spools. So first I want to show you what I did with these vintage spools. And some of them you've already seen. And I don't have all of them here, so I may throw up some pictures. So first I want to talk about the Christmas ornaments that I made. I made 3 different kinds of Christmas ornaments. The first ornament I made actually has nothing to do with spools. I made little embroidered and beaded fabric hoop ornaments. And these are in 3-inch hoops. They are printed fabric, and I embroidered the beads. I embroidered the berries. I put some beads on here, and then I put a little gold. And there were 2 other kinds of, 2 other images that I also embroidered on. And they're just glued in the back, so they're super light. So these were one kind of ornament that I made for the craft fair. I also made a fancy sparkly ornament, and this one was, I made them in gold and in silver, and the silver ones had different charms like sewing machines and dress forms and those kinds of things, and then the silver ones had scissors on them. But I really liked these a lot, and these were really popular. A lot of people really liked these. And the third ornament that I made is this spool tree, which was also popular. In fact, the ornaments were very popular. That's one of the lessons I've learned, which I'll talk about at the end. This 3-spool tree ornament is the third kind of ornament that I made. I did a tutorial on how to make these ornaments, but I'll post that link in the eye later. So keep an eye out for that when I show you my spool trees, which I'll talk about right now. So the ornaments were definitely most popular. A lesson learned. I also made 2 different kinds of Christmas trees. I made bottle brush Christmas trees, which look like this. And essentially these are just bottle brush trees in decorated spools, which again, these are part of that tutorial, which I'll link to right here actually. So here's the tutorial here. This will show you how to make bottle brushes, how to make those ornaments, and also how to make these thread trees in spools. People loved the trees, but because of the wind, I couldn't keep them up. So they were I had to lay them down or else they would have just blown away. So I don't think people quite knew what to do with them. So that's something to keep in mind for next time, definitely. I also, sticking to the Christmas theme, because this was a holiday market, I also made 2 different wreaths, neither of which sold. So here was the one wreath, a green one, and here is the red wreath. And when people saw them, they loved them. But because of the way I had to organize my tent, because of the wind, they were very hard to see. And so I still have them, obviously. But, you know, they don't go bad, so I can use them again. And that was the extent of the Christmas stuff. I also brought a lot of non-Christmas stuff with me because the point of this was this whole venture was inspired by these tiny vintage spools that I got. They're tiny vintage silk spools, and I thought they were too beautiful to put into a box. And so I decided to make a pair of earrings out of them. And then I thought, I love these earrings so much, other people might like earrings as well. And so I started making earrings. And so this is kind of another black and white bee pair of earrings that I made. So I brought 20 pairs of earrings. I also made pendants. So here's one of the pendants. And I'm actually wearing one as well. And so I brought 15 pendants, I think. And finally, on the jewelry front, I brought some necklaces. So these are horizontal, made into necklaces, and this one is not all those who wander are lost. Actually, I'm wearing that as well because I just love that saying from J.R.R. Tolkien. So I brought necklaces, 13 necklaces. I had bookmarks. So these are spool bookmarks. They unroll. You put them in your book. Here's a picture of them in the book. And then you roll them back up again onto their spool. You tuck in the end, like in this picture here, and you end up with a little bookmark nugget that you can throw in your pocket for on-the-go reading, like that. And I brought 10 of those. I had planned on bringing wall hooks like this. So these are covered in pattern paper, like old patterns, and spools for hooks. But I decided not to bring these. I couldn't get them how I wanted them. Essentially, they need to be, these spools need to be screwed in. And I tried using a nail and it popped off the spool and split one. So it definitely needs to be screwed in, but I just did not have the equipment to do that by this morning. So I decided to nix these, and instead I decided last night, just last minute, to make little keychains that were $5. They're just wood and cotton with a little, they're kind of a giant lobster claw, which I can't apparently work like that. I also brought my circular weaving, which didn't sell. I brought I brought 4 embroideries. I sold 3 of them. The embroideries were a big hit. They were just ones that I had from before the pandemic. Both of my winter scenes that I've shown on here before were purchased. And then another, a unicorn one was purchased. I think that's what I brought. I think that's everything. And it was a lot. The problem that I had, okay, so let's talk about how I did. I think it went pretty well. So I'm going to talk numbers because I think numbers are important. I made $411. I had to pay sales tax to the city, which was about $30. So I made about $380. The fee for this was $10. I did have to buy a couple things purposely for this, like weights for the tent the canopy I was using, which I'm glad I had because it would have blown away. But I didn't have to buy anything that I can't use again. So essentially I bought things for this craft fair that I can then use elsewhere. So needless to say, for a $10 fee, that was pretty good. I had hoped to do more than that, but I was expecting to do less than that. So I think in the end, I'm pretty pleased, and I think it was definitely worth it. All right. But let's talk about lessons that I've learned. I learned actually quite a few lessons. First of all, wear sunscreen because I'm sunburned and my lips are very sunburned. My lips are very sore. That was my number one that I noticed when I got back because I was sunburned. But just a couple things I had planned on. So this is what my booth looked like set up. I did eventually move the Christmas tree from the back to the front for a couple of reasons. Number one, that seemed to be what people were drawn into, and I wanted it in the front. The other thing is that people kept bonking their head on my sign. So I don't know what to do about the sign because I feel like I need a sign. So I have to figure out the sign situation. That's the first thing. The second thing is my stuff is very light. And so the Christmas trees, which I thought would be big hits, were not as big of hits. Mostly because I think, well, a couple reasons. The first reason is because I had to lie them down. Because it was so windy, if I had had them standing up, they would have blown away, which would have been a shame. So that was kind of a bummer. The other issue I had, and this is just because I was so frantic getting set up this morning. I had an hour and a half to get set up. I was by myself. And because I had so many like little bits and pieces to set up, it took the full hour and a half. And I still had some things that weren't priced. And so I priced them really quickly. Well, I priced them more expensive than I had decided I was going to price them. I priced them by memory instead of looking at my spreadsheet. And I made them too expensive. And those are the things that people like pick up and then they'd ask the price. Well, and then they'd see the price and they'd put it back down again because I put it on a little card. So definitely pricing everything individually ahead of time works much better than having a sign. So that's my first thing. I also did some weird pricing with some of my things that are actually priced on, like some of my necklaces and stuff. I don't know what I was thinking when I was pricing them. It was like late at night and I think I just messed it up. So the pricing was wonky, and that's something I definitely learned that I need to fix. But the most important thing that I learned is that you have to be judicious when you pick a craft fair or art fair to take your stuff to. This was a small town Mississippi craft fair, and I sell these earrings. These earrings are silk, handmade, antique spools. I sell them for $40 a pair, which I don't think is too expensive, and I don't plan on lowering those prices. But this is not the kind of fair that people are coming to expecting to buy $40 earrings. I didn't get the chance to look around, but my husband walked around and apparently there were a lot of people selling earrings, and they were selling like, a charm on a hook for cheaper, for what that's worth, right? Inexpensive. I would tell people the story of these earrings and the company, and, they thought it was really cool, but people didn't come prepared to pay that kind of money for jewelry. So I think I'm going to do this again next year because it's in my town. It's $10, right? I mean, you can't beat that. And it's a great investment. And now that I have stock and stuff, I don't have to like buy any of this stuff, and I can prepare ahead of time, essentially. But I definitely think, well, this was my soft launch. The fair I really want to do is called Market Street Festival, and it's in our town still, so it's right downtown. That is more art with less craft. People go there expecting to buy, when you're buying jewelry there, you're buying like handmade jewelry. Like you're expecting to spend some money on jewelry. And I think that that's more my target audience. But regardless, even if I do exactly the same as I did today, I still will make back the fee for that because that fee is only about $100. So overall, I think that this is very successful. I would like to add, caveat, almost half of my sales today were to one person who always buys my stuff. We work together, we're friends. She loves to support me, and she does weaving. She does textile art. She does weaving and sewing and that kind of a thing. And so this was like right up her alley. It was like geared towards her essentially. She was like my target audience, right? Like a woman with some disposable income who sews and loves vintage things is kind of my target audience, and that's my friend. So I'm very glad that I did it. I wish I had worn sunscreen and chapstick, but overall I think it was pretty good, and I'm pleased. My room is a disaster, so that's going to be this week, is cleaning that up. Tomorrow I plan on putting all of the small things on Etsy. I don't think I'm going to be putting the trees on Etsy just because they're a bit delicate and I don't know that they would make the posted. They would make the shipping. I've seen some of the packages I've gotten recently and I'm not sure that they would make it. But the other stuff, I do plan on the ornaments, the jewelry, those kinds of things. I do plan on posting on Etsy tomorrow. So if you're interested in spool jewelry or spool ornaments or embroidered ornaments, check out my Etsy shop, and I'll put this is the Spoolery Etsy shop. I'll put it down below, and that should go live tomorrow with all the rest of the stuff. If you see something and it's no longer available, I do have I can make something similar. I can't always make the exact same thing because most of the materials that I use in this are vintage. The only things that aren't vintage are like the findings and some of them, the beads. But all the trim, all the spools, some of the charms are vintage. And so I may not be able to replicate, but I can at least get the same feel if you're interested in something. So check out my Etsy shop down below tomorrow, which is the 21st, Sunday the 21st. I would say by 5 p.m. Central US time. If you're interested in any of those things, that's where they will be. And overall, I'm pleased. It was fun. I got to talk to people, which was lovely. As an extrovert in the pandemic, and it was nice, and it was windy, which was, a problem for my stock and my display, but it was great for hopefully not getting COVID. So, there was lots of breeze, there was lots of ventilation, and it was really nice. And I also got to visit with people I hadn't seen in a while because I have been off campus and out of kind of hanging out much. I am tired though. I made at least 100 tiny little spool things, probably more, and I'm glad that it's done. So I'm going to take a break from making spool things for a little while and get back into stitching because I've really missed stitching. This took up all my stitching time, so I have gotten almost no stitching done. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to go eat some chocolate, I think. Maybe get a milkshake. And do some stitching until I have to walk my dog. I think I'm just going to stitch tonight too. I think that sounds glorious. So I will see you all next Friday for my floss tube. I think it's floss tube 60. So I'll see you next Friday for floss tube number 60. I got an advent calendar in the mail that I want to talk about. I will have some stitching done that I am excited to show you. It's just going to be a good week, I think. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching and all of your good wishes about my craft fair today. Please take good care of yourselves and have a good one. Bye.